there's this trope, I guess I guess you can call it a trope, that liberals won't survive the apocalypse, that people in cities, they don't know how to survive, they don't know how to hunt. And there's a lot of people who are more rural who believe they'll probably fare better. I think it's a bit of a fair assessment. You know, Luke was saying these Starbucks hippies aren't going to do so well when the ish hits the fan. And maybe these guys who got farms or at least know how to deal with chickens might do better. But you know, you've traveled around, you've met people of all different backgrounds, all the different dirty jobs. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's just a myth?
Well, if you had to choose a side, you know, I mean, it's Walking Dead time, okay? Like you're going to have to hunker down in a place that is primarily populated with well-educated, thoughtful writers and thinkers, or hunters and gatherers and builders. What team do you go on when things get sporty? Look,
well, that's why I'd say I'd go out to the countryside and find some more conservative.
Look around. I mean, look, you've answered your own question. I can see where you're coming from, and from where I've been, I know what I would choose. Look, it's weird for me after 20 years of Dirty Jobs because people see that show and they figure that I'm that guy. I mean, they figure that I can fix or build or replicate anything, you know, and I don't know why, because I never do it on the show. I simply bear witness and work as an apprentice to people who can actually do it. I actually can't. I mean, that gene is recessive. My granddad had it, but I didn't, you know. Dirty Jobs was a love letter to him. That's another story. My point is, you know, when we lost power for 4 days in Northern California at the height of the lockdowns, I never felt more helpless. There's nothing I could do except watch my meat in the refrigerator slowly rot and watch as the temperature of the house slowly rose and the thick, arid smoke of the wildfires just drifted down, and a plague of ants somehow on top of all of this is in the house. Everything was just crapping the bed contemporaneously. It was a remarkably grim time. And then our TV, you know, there's no TV, and it's like my whole life is held together with pipes and cables and wires and the men and women who have the know-how to fix them when they go down. Whatever little hiccup you just had here, I had a similar one during that time, and we lost a primetime TV show. You know, we were 50 minutes through and we lost the whole thing. Had to start from scratch. But that's nothing when you think about real power outages. Look, the heroes of our workforce, and I use that word very, very, very rarely, but I use it now because we're in short supply. It's the linemen. It's the people that are anybody who shares my addiction to smooth roads and runways and affordable electricity and indoor plumbing. You know, we're the people who need to be most involved in this conversation.
Do you run afoul of people that maybe promote or just stand by and watch planned obsolescence run its or does that come up constantly?
No.
Or are you like, we got to fix this thing because it's broken because it was built to break so that they can sell us another one later?
It's so. I mean, yes is the short answer. The funnier answer is I played Tim Allen's younger brother on Last Man Standing, and the first episode I did with him, we were standing backstage waiting for our entrance, and we were talking about this exact topic came up, and Tim lost his mind, telling me a story about how a blender broke and how he wanted to fix it with his grandson to show him how a thing can be salvaged and repaired. But of course it can't, because the whole thing's like 2 pieces of extruded plastic, and it wasn't designed to be fixed. It was designed to fail. And we missed our cue because Tim Allen was screaming about planned obsolescence.
You ever seen the TED Talk from the guy who tried to make a toaster from scratch?
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
He couldn't do it.
Can't do it. Can't be done.
So it can be done in the sense that maybe if he tried making a steel toaster, but the plastic he could not do.
Right.
It's amazing to me that the technology we have in the civilization is dependent upon hyper-specific specialties. A computer is not just made by one person who knows how to make a computer. It's made by probably, several dozen specialists in all these different areas, and more than dozens. Because if you really want to get down to it, you have this factory that can make the chips, that runs the machines, that talks about the coolant fluid and all that stuff. But then you got the people who are going to source the chemicals for it. You got the people who are going to source the metals for it, refine the metals. It probably takes How many, I bet somebody in the audience might actually know this. How many specialties does it take to make one modern computer? 300, 400? More?
Probably more.
The
But
guy who mines the copper?
yeah. Isn't it funny, though, about how when you talk about what it takes to make this thing, right? Or the computer, right? Whatever little piece of tech you're most currently enamored of, all of the companies responsible want to position themselves as innovators because there's great sexiness that comes with being an innovator. I don't care whether you're Apple or Google or Intel. You go down the list and they all talk about their incredible ability to think ahead and innovate, when in reality, their real talent, the dirty jobs talent, is their ability to replicate. It's not enough to make one of these things. You guys all want one. In fact, if you can't make 1 billion of them these days, you don't really have a business. So language matters. And when you see people work so hard to associate themselves so specifically with something like innovation, it's almost always at the expense of imitation, because imitation gets a bad rap. But these computers and all the specialities that you're talking about, that's all based on Henry Ford's vision. You know?
Exchangeable parts.
With art too.
Yeah.
If you can repeat yourself, if you're a master of repetition, you can be a master artist because you just keep doing it. And then it's going to come around when that thing is when it's needed, and you got to.
Well, now
as
you know
opposed to innovating.
That's the scarcity model, right? If you're making art for the masses or technology for the masses, then you better have the duplication gene down. But if you're looking for NFTs, if you're looking for originals, there's only one Whistler's mother. There's only one Mona Lisa.
But you could say that an original is a bunch of replications pushed together into one new uber replication that people consider original. Like when I write music, I take notes from songs that I heard in the past and create a new song.
Yeah,
sure.
We're all standing on the shoulders of giants.
Sure.
There's a great anime. It's called Dr. Stone. Have you ever hear of it? I
No.
can't imagine you would have. But I've actually not watched a whole lot of it. But it's the premise is, I'm gonna get this wrong for fans of Dr. Stone. Will get mad at me. This genius kid and his friend. I guess everybody turns to stone in the world for some reason. And then thousands of years later, for some reason, this ultra genius and his friend or whatever, or he de-stones them or whatever. Basically, the premise is he's this really smart kid in a prehistoric time or an underdeveloped time, and he's developing technology. So I've only seen a couple episodes, but he's like, I'm going to make a cell phone. And the episode is actually him directing people to find the metals and explaining how vacuum tubes work. And I'm like, it's like Magic School Bus, but for anime fans.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually really fascinating to have this action-oriented show for kids explain how a vacuum tube works, and he as he's putting it together and making the glass. So it's fascinating. He's like, okay, to make the tube, we need to make glass. Here's what we need to find to make the glass. Here's what we need to make to blow the glass. Here's the metal we need. And then he tries to find the proper filaments, but he can't find the right, that can withstand the right temperatures. I thought it was brilliant. Because when watching that, I think it would give a lot of people, especially millennials, I shouldn't pick on millennials. Everybody needs to understand this. That when it goes into the basics of what's in your TV, you have no idea the precision and the hard work and the trial and error that went into inventing all of these things, and how we're very lucky that we've written things down and passed them on, right?
You made my own point better than I did. That's what I was trying to say. When you're sitting there in the dark and you can't get your own power back on, you realize just how decoupled you've come from the chain of knowledge that allows you to be your own solution, right? I remember, if you ever watch Star Trek?
Oh,
Surely.
absolutely.
All right, well,
Don't get me started
So
on Star
much.
Trek.
what's the prime directive? The prime directive in Star Trek.
Well, you can't interfere with another culture unless they've reached warp capabilities.
Correct. All right, good for you.
And that's only and it's only because once they reach warp, they're inevitably going to encounter other civilizations.
They have to.
Right.
So I'm hiking through Peru 15, 20 years ago, Cusco to Machu Picchu. I'm with some buddies, and we hired some Sherpas to help us because we had a lot of gear, and we didn't want to carry it all. And these guys were unbelievable. They're giant lungs, giant heart. They would start walking around 11 in the afternoon. We'd start walking around, 11 in the morning. We'd start walking around 6. They'd pass us by 4. running in bare feet, right? Con permiso, con permiso. Anyway, I love these guys, and I had a Walkman. I had a Sony Walkman at the time, and I was listening to Soundgarden, Super Unknown had just come out.
So good.
And I am just walking through the clouds listening to this, and it's so great. And on the last day, I thought, you know what, these guys were so awesome. I put the headphones on one of the guys who had never been below 12,000 feet in his whole life, by the way, never heard an electric guitar. And I put on Spoon Man, okay? So watching his face, listening to Chris Cornell sing, and through those headphones, it was just like, I knew in a second this was my gift.
You violated the front directive.
Dude, I've been tortured ever since because like somewhere in the Andes is probably a stone built thing that looks like a Walkman, but then like what happened when the batteries went out and now the magic sounds are gone forever? What's that going to do?
There's this fascinating quote I heard that you could give Christopher Columbus unlimited resources and he would never build you a nuclear submarine. Because the understanding of nuclear energy is just, it's beyond anything they could put together.
It's like a kid. It's like adults aren't capable of doing the thought processes, and that's part of why we have young minds to do that. And why are they still in office politically?
There's something that I always that I perhaps mistakenly believe is fascinating. Probably a lot of people just think I'm being an idiot, but I love asking people this question.
Fine line, man. Fine line between fascination and idiocy.
So but I've realized something when I would ask people this question: how do coal power plants work? How do they create electricity? I'd imagine, right? So what do they do? How do we turn coal into electricity?
Well, you got a turbine primarily, and first you got to go into the earth. You got to get it out. We live not far. We're sitting not far from where that happens, and then you got bituminous and you got anthracite, and the approaches are slightly different. But in the end, the coal's got to wind up inside a turbine.
You're getting way more specific than I normally get.
This is good.
Well, go ahead with your explanation because I have a slightly different.
Well, we just boil water.
Oh, okay,
right.
Great.
Yeah. You're like, here's the chemical breakdown. We burn stuff. We boil water.
Yeah.
Steam pressure spins a turbine.
That's it.
Rotating magnets generates an electrical current, and vice versa. How does nuclear energy? How do we take nuclear or radioactive uranium and turn it into electricity?
We boil it even hotter.
We boil water.
Yeah. Yep.
Steam pressure spins a turbine, and then there's the solar fields. How do we, a lot of people think it's all photovoltaic, but actually many of them just direct, someone did correct me on this once. We direct all these mirrors towards a vat of salt water. I believe it's salt water.
Or molten salt.
Molten salt.
That's even more because it holds the heat for longer.
And then creates steam pressure, spins a turbine.
Boiling water. Yeah.
Boiling water. So you're talking about what do you do when your power is out and you can't, get it back going? Well, the problem is getting a turbine.
Yeah, there's your problem.
So it's like even understanding something as basic as steam pressure can spin something. It's not particularly complicated. How do you build a turbine? You're gonna need some copper. You have to get a lot of copper and coil it, do it properly.
Dude, it's
crazy.
I just finished a show called 6 Degrees, which sounds a little bit like Dr. Stone. It's kind of a magic school bus sort of thing, that surprising connections that take you down this serendipitous line of invention. But part of the thing that I really wanted to do with that show was, there were a few things that really just chapped my ass. And one is electric cars. And just the idea that we're so in love with them because electricity is so much better than fossil fuels. And, if you just follow the electricity back from the plug, you're going to get to a spinning turbine. And the odds are very, very, very high that turbine is being powered by gas or oil, and you just can't you can't separate the two. For all the virtue in the world, you just can't do it.
We got storage issues with power. If we want to use wind, what happens when wind is low? Solar doesn't work at night. Geothermal's fantastic, but you got to be in the right positioning, the right place for it. And so for the time being, we are heavily dependent on fossil fuels, which means burning them and creating a lot of carbon.
Lightning's going to change. When we can start harnessing lightning,
we're going to boil a lot of water.
Nail a battery,
And you know why we can't, though? We can't
it
predict
melts everything we can.
Well, it's just we
use
can't
as a
predict
battery.
voltage, amperage. The bolts are seemingly random to us.
Yeah, you'd have
so-
to stick something way up in the sky, like a tether, maybe the space elevator, to use as like a lightning rod, and then the elevator itself, the tether could be the superconductor.
The issue is
the
we
capacitor.
can't properly measure the output. So while it seems to a lot of people like, oh, you should be able to, no, we can't, because when all of our electrical systems have to be, they're specific. Can we handle the load? Typically, you're right. The load is way beyond anything we normally deal with, but we also just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's lightning, man. It's like,
Yeah.
Well, I think the big point is the fundamentals. Boiling water is fundamental. Building a turbine is more sophisticated. The jobs that are going wanting right now are fundamental. They're fundamental jobs. And the fact that most of us have become disconnected from those jobs and the people who do them, that's how we land the plane on the skills gap. It's not just a skill gap, it's a will gap. It's a lack of will on the part of many, many, many millions of people who rely on the people with the skill. We're just not properly
I'm going to
gobsmacked.
tell you a little personal story here. My sink just broke a couple days ago, and now it's been leaking underneath. I was like, well, gotta hire a guy to fix it. I think I'm going to fix
man.
it.
Dude, everybody's got that story.
I want to get down there and fix it.
I'll tell you this, man. When it hits the fan, very few people are going to be crying for academics or
BuzzFeed reporters.
but they're going to be begging for a plumber.
Yep.
They're going to say, "Please make my poop go away. What do I do with it?"
That's my whole life now. I ask that question every day. How long do you want to wait for the refrigerator repairman, for the plumber?
And speaking of, you said you were in the sewer. What was life like in the sewers? I've never been in one before.
It's pretty great, man.
Tell me more.
I've been
pretty great.
I've been in one before. It's,
right.
Well, I mean, if you want to get back to the fundamentals, I mean, that's how Dirty Jobs started, with a sewer inspector in San Francisco in 2002. And it's another world. It's the classic out of sight, out of mind thing. But, this is a 120-year-old system. Millions of bricks down there, many, many, many millions of roaches the size of your thumb, countless rats. You're knee deep, truly, in a river of crap. And good.
How much do they get paid?
Oh, that sewer inspector did it was a city job, so he said I think it was $82,500.
Wow.
Private.
We got to. I volunteer to pay more taxes to make sure those people
Yeah,
get more money,
seriously.
man.
Look, he loved his job. I mean, $82,000 a year. He says
How many years ago was this?
this was close to 20.
Yeah, that's a lot more compared to what
That's
it's worth
true.
now.
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
He probably works
only
by
what, like
himself.
equivalent of like 120.
So he's
Well-
got like a chill job down there. Like,
He has no supervision.
Yes.
He has
there you go.
nobody monitoring him. His job was he hammered out the bricks that were starting to rot and replace them. So all he did, he'd go down there, he'd mix his mortar, he'd hammer out the bricks that had succumbed to the second law of thermodynamics, and he hammered in a new one.
Wearing like a full suit though, right?
No,
No.
Tyvek, like a rubber. Now he had a heavy duty rubber suit.
But what people don't understand about sewage is that it's got chemicals and stuff. It could be,
Dangerous.
it's corrosive, right?
Everything, people think their toilet is like different from their sink. Like different drains go to different pipes that go to, no, it all goes to the same basic place. So when it rains, being in a sewer during a rainstorm is a whole different deal. But also being in a sewer, it's not just a river of urine and crap coming at you. It's all the stuff that goes down the toilet. It's like a medicine cabinet. It's
boy.
it's Q-tips. It's Kotex.
Isn't it just black though?
No, it's more brown.
Really?
Some of it's not as thick as you think. Some of it sometimes it gets pretty
my.
thick. It depends how the fixed film reactors and the lift pumps are.
we should do a
functioning.
field trip
yeah.
and investigate further.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.